Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture. He's Michael Sidgwick from WhatCulture, and we are here with your after news and in a bit of a breaking news situation. We initially came in here and we already have recorded one news video surrounding Dave Meltzer's speculation, let's just say, on Wrestling Observer Radio about Cody Rhodes potentially going to WWE, them offering him loads of bloody money to make the jump, basically, because he hadn't re-signed with AEW. And we walked out of here about 10 minutes ago thinking, well, that's it, job done, back to the podcast game. And now AEW have tweeted this quote from Tony Khan. Cody and Brandi Rhodes were integral to the launch of All Elite Wrestling. Cody's ability, combined with his boldness and his passion for our industry and his love for community outreach, helped AEW deliver on our mission to give fans what they needed for far too long. Something new, innovative, and lasting. Brandi helped us shape the AEW story, and I appreciate how hard she fought for us both in the ring and out of the ring, being in the women's division, while advancing our efforts at inclusion and civic causes, including great partnerships with Culture City and the American Heart Association. I have immense respect and appreciation for Cody and Brandi, and I wish them both the best as they move on from AEW. Thank you, Cody and Brandi. Cody himself tweeted how his love for AEW and what he was able to achieve there. So, Sidge, this has gone in the last few minutes from a story about speculations, but us generally dismissing the fact that Cody could make the leap. Yeah, the leap to WWE to, oh, bollocks, this is really happening. What do you reckon?
Jeez, I'm shell-shocked. I'm going to struggle to articulate my thoughts here. The first thing I want to get across is that I hope Cody Rhodes, despite having a really divisive reputation over the last year, I suppose, I really hope his contribution to All Elite Wrestling isn't remembered in shorthand as, he's very ambitious, made a bet with Dave Meltzer, cut a really good promo and had worked a great program with Chris Jericho, then he entered the Codyverse and that was it. He was so much more important to AEW. AEW would not exist, I don't think, without Cody Rhodes. And if you look at who he lost to, which was always a huge, it's weird to talk about it in the past tense.
Yes.
It was always a huge point of consternation amongst AEW fans. People didn't want him to lose to Lance Archer, to Malachi Black, to Penta El Zero Miedo, but they weren't building the company around those three names. As much as I personally love all three of them, they were building around the four pillars pretty much from day one. MJF, Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, and Cody Rhodes lost to all three of those in genuine star-making performances. He was a huge asset. Weird, again, in the past tense. He was, Jesus Christ, he was a huge asset to All Elite Wrestling. He decided to win a lot of matches with the idea that if he was going to be a star, and he had to be a star to make the people he wanted to put over look good. What an incredible asset. What a fascinating run. He never did anything that was boring. He's got incredibly over in every sort of way, as like the babyface savior of North American professional wrestling, to the John Cena-like polarizing reactions, wonderful promos, fascinating storyline developments, like incredible angles. Those late 2019 angles with Chris Jericho were fantastic. Yeah, I can understand some of the complaints that haunted him throughout his tenure. I didn't necessarily agree with them, but I do understand them. This is seismic. It's not just a top star leaving a company. It's a guy who built a company leaving. I expect this to be developing as the days go on. Brandi Rhodes leaving at the same time. There's a story there I expect. I don't know what it is, but she's legitimately been on Dynamite like 2 weeks ago in a pretty poorly received development. Might the reception to that development have something to do with her departure as well, considering she was all over the show? There might be more stories to break on this in the coming days.
Well, we can sit here and speculate, is all we can do, really, about the Rhodes' future. There is obviously the possibility that they could go to WWE, as Meltzer has been speculating on Wrestling Observer Radio, as we talked about 10 minutes ago, which is lost forever now. They obviously could go off and do other business ventures, television stuff or whatever it may be. Or, and I hate to bring a gimmick into this, and this is not me playing a character
No,
now.
it's fine.
Or, this could all be a work. What do you reckon to it all? Because obviously, I've already seen some people on social media going, well, if Cody leaves and then comes back, couldn't he then fight for the world title?
I mean, I don't think it's a work. They're not a corny organisation. They work people. They've drip-fed, for example, the CM Punk return ruler.
Yes.
That was an obvious tactical leak. They have in the past worked the media. I don't think this is it. I don't think they specifically like really put their hearts across the community and charity initiatives as part of the press release confirming their exit. If this is a work, I think that's an exceptionally poor taste. I think when you see that statement in the exact font that it is, I feel like they wouldn't mess with the integrity of the company on that sort of level. They're not mentioning how much they loved past tense the charity work if they're just working the marks. That I just think they're gone at this point. I think they're gone. On the WWE thing, what a huge coup. We know that the WWE, that is, are really worried, or have historically been worried about the perception that All Elite Wrestling is this new sort of superpower who's taken like a share of their monopoly, and they've been worried about their perception as this sort of fading organisation with terrible morale that everyone wants to leave. I think it was Brody Lee who revealed on Talk Is Jericho that Triple H was alleged to have said, "We can't let you go even though you've asked, because if you look at everyone else who wants to leave and the narratives that are running around, it will look like the rats are leaving the sinking ship." In one fell swoop, they could completely subvert the perception that AEW is where the people want to wrestle and WWE is the place where we're pig sick of our lives, but it's where we make the money. If Cody Rhodes, a cornerstone of that company, willingly jumps to WWE, my God, their reputation as a place to go gets rehabbed instantly. And the big trick is, if they can actually book Cody Rhodes, maybe some of the people who aren't getting TV time, I don't think it's going to be the start of something, the second paradigm shift in like 4 years, but who the hell knows? This is stranger things have happened. Stranger things are happening in the wrestling news sphere throughout all of 2022.
We will of course bring you the latest updates as soon as we get it on this story, but please do let us know your thoughts on everything we've discussed in the comments section below. Well, let's talk a little bit about Stone Cold Steve Austin, actually, because we reported on it this morning. Further developments with Meltzer suggesting it looks like it may well happen, a match for Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 38. One would assume, of course, Kevin Owens surrounding the reports as the name that would be across the ring from him. PW Insider also provided an update on sort of the background in terms of how long WWE has been working towards this. PW Insider sharing the fact that apparently WWE first approached Stone Cold about the gig in late December 2021. They apparently wanted to sort of kick off the comeback story around the Rumble. That obviously hasn't happened, but on Raw last night, as we mentioned, you've got Kevin Owens shooting on Texas. Stone Cold Steve Austin, a Texas boy, defending the Lone Star State.
I mean, Jesus Christ, I really did not expect to wake up to this particular news. I think it's so surreal that people can't really accept that it's potentially more likely than not happening, hence why there hasn't been as much of an eruption of buzz as you'd expect. This is an absolutely gigantic story, but perhaps because we can't let ourselves believe it, I guess, it doesn't really feel like it's flooded the pro wrestling discourse. I'm mixed on all of this. There's a way to present incredibly old for wrestling guys in the right context and get the most out of them. We saw Giant Baba in the early 90s of All Japan Pro Wrestling. They got a lot out of his legendary status. AEW are doing it with Sting at present. The issue is that the way to get the maximum magic out of someone who's physically limited is to obscure them in plain sight half the time, to do smoke and mirrors, to partner them alongside younger wrestlers who can do a lot of the work. Steve Austin returning in WWE, it's like he's not going to do a tag match. He's not going to have someone to do a lot of the bumping for him. They just don't really take tag teams wrestling seriously as a form or as a vehicle to sell main event storylines. So my worry is that they'll try to like badly overexpose a 57-year-old Steve Austin. It's one of those things. I'm cynical going into it, but I'm not like completely and utterly numb to this. If Austin, in good shape, can work a really serviceable brawl with Kevin Owens, and that's all we can reasonably expect from a 57-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin with his home state cheering him on, like, done right, it could be magic. My worry is that it's just not the WWE way to really protect their older veterans.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any need to complicate it. Like you say, we all just want to see him back in a wrestling ring doing all the press, the stunner, etc., that we knew and loved him for back in the day.
He never got fat and old, did he?
No.
He's always looked almost identical to the guy who saved the business, or saved the Fed anyway, in 1998. He's always kept himself trim. His bump clock, realistically, he had some hard ticks, but not that many of them. who knows, it might be magic after all.
And if they're struggling to sell any more WrestleMania tickets, rumours around like 2-for-1 deals and stuff like that, and Stone Cold Steve Austin on the card will certainly shift a fair few.
Don't tell them which night. Do not tell them which night. It's like, oh, make a choice. We're not going to tell you.
No, exactly. Maybe both.
But just get both to make sure.
Yeah,
just
exactly. Right, let's provide a bit of an update on Samoa Joe, obviously released for the second bloody time by WWE back in January of this year. And he's been teasing a wrestling return on his Instagram, posting a photo of him sitting in a lovely place. And he'd been away with his family, enjoying a peaceful week up on the mountain with friends and family, he said. And there's a big jigsaw in front of him, and it says the pieces are beginning to come together. What do you reckon, Samoa Joe wrestling return? And would you like to see him somewhere like AEW?
It's a special attraction figure, yes. I think that Samoa Joe working a full-time schedule is not a good idea. I think it would sort of undermine his aura, taint his aura, if you saw like latter days Samoa Joe like working dark or working as a Bobby Fish type figure. AEW is very sort of cognizant of pro wrestling history and they love to preserve it. The idea of Samoa Joe like returning to something approaching his legendary indie run but in short bursts, really physical bursts, like they do well to restore his aura. I think realistically, like Samoa Joe would be better off booked as a Sting adjacent figure rather than someone like a Bryan Danielson. Like I just don't think that he's been at his very best genuinely for like over a decade at this point. It's a special part-time attraction that King of the Indies has returned, so to speak. Yes, but it's a regular fixture. There's just too much talent who aren't getting enough TV time as it is.
Yeah, real shame that WWE let him go, in my opinion. I thought he was excellent as an occasional wrestler, like we saw briefly in NXT, of course, before they released him. And I thought he did a sensational job as a commentator and was seemingly transitioning into that role very well. And then, well, WWE did what WWE often does. Let's talk a little bit about AEW, because the final story today surrounds Billy Gunn giving out some advice on why some people maybe aren't getting over as much as they should. He's been talking with Busted Open Radio, saying that today's workers need to let fans get, quote, emotionally invested in their characters and what they represent. He said he didn't think it's a good idea to over-rely on big spots or big moves to get a reaction instead. He said that, according to Gunn, is, quote, forgotten the next time somebody walks out the tunnel. He said basically you should be getting the reaction that you get when you hit the huge moves simply by walking to the ring. What do you make of this take?
Not much, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I get exactly what you're saying. I've heard and seen and read veterans say variations of this sort of take since the minute I first started reading Insider Wrestling mags and all the rest of it. They love saying like that, and I completely agree with it. In principle, the spaces between moves are what matters the most. Getting a character over, it all makes complete sense. Like Hangman Page, however, has proved that he can do both things. He's an absolute lunatic in the ring when he wants to be.
Yes.
And he's developed like a new sort of strain of storytelling that can engage with a very specifically millennium audience. Look, he's not saying anything wrong, but it's weird that he's saying it in his guise as a coach in AEW because more of the roster are over than aren't. Yes,
I get it. You know, you got some people who do bonkers spots, Darby Allin, for example. But then on the other hand, you also have people like MJF who still do big spots and what have you. And I've had some phenomenal, probably 5-star worthy, Dave, matches recently. But also, he gets that reaction sometimes by just walking to the ring. So, I get it. There is something to be learned there, but it's sometimes not that simple. I think you need to grab people's attention and then introduce them to your character. But yeah, emotional investment, I suppose, is the key for people. And I find that a lot easier to do when it comes to AEW more so than WWE.
Yeah, absolutely. The booking helps as well.
Yes, exactly.
The good booking, the good, competent, logical booking helps as well.
Let us know your thoughts on everything we've discussed, particularly the Cody Rhodes story, of course, in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Got the Raw review available right now. We're previewing NXT 2.0 and Vengeance Day a little bit later on today as well. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick.
And if you like hearing what Michael Sidgwick's had to say about AEW, you can get his brilliant book, Becoming All Elite. The Rise of AEW on Amazon is the best place to go So if you want to go and get that wherever you are in the world, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, as I said. But this has been your After News. My thanks to Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Lovely stuff.